Hello, my name is JoAnne Bouchard, and I am the fourth of the 8 children of Paul and Shirley Davis. And I have 2 children, Mary Elizabeth and Alexander, and I'm married to Michael Bouchard. And my dad, Paul Davis, I'll be asking questions to today. So, what do you want for your family more than anything else?
Well, it's important that a family stays together. Fortunately for us, all of our offsprings are close by. The furthest one would be maybe about 15 minutes away from our house. But as we, Mom and I, grow older, the children hopefully will all blend together. And what will make that happen is that they have common background, common values, and these rich values that are instilled into their parents will be translated to them, and as they play together and associate together, these values will be enriched when they see each other setting good examples. And this is our hope, that this will continue, and it'll make it a very enjoyable life for them in the future.
Thank you. Where do you see our family in 100 or 200 or more years?
You really want me to stretch my imagination?
I guess so.
If we could make it in the next 5 or 10 years and succeed at parenting in these short terms, I'm sure this will continue. There will be hardships. Life presents that to every member of the family, and you work with that. These hardships, if you pray on them, they will help you. You'll feel better about it. You'll learn how to cope with it and accept them. So the strength relies heavily on the parents. And as you children will discover yourselves, your strength helps your relationship with your children. And that helps with parenting. To stretch my imagination to 300 years, 200 years, or 100 years is very difficult. But as I look back on our family history right now, we're looking at some of the pictures, some of the family mementos are over 100 years old. So we're already seeing 100 years that easily. So, so you put another 100 to it, it'll be the same. Times will change. Things mechanically get easier, but the values still remain the same. That does not change. And that's what you take with you, and that's what you hope each one of you will learn.
You stress values a lot. What values have been the most important to you and Mom?
Well, loving and caring for each person, and having that ability to shed any indifferences that you may experience. Each family member is different, and just learn to grow with that and accept each other of what they are. When I say that means I'm hoping you all have the same values, and I know we have tried our best as parents to instill in each member of the family. We think of different ways to get to certain things, but if you have the richness of the value, and you keep God in the middle of what you're trying to do, and rely on Him, and accept His powers, you'll succeed.
What is your greatest accomplishment in life?
Oh boy. Oh well, to find a beautiful partner, that was a blessing on my side. There's a lot of unknowns, but it has worked very good for Shirley and I. We have been very fortunate that we have been very successful at blending our lives together and knowing how to accept each other. That's I would say is our greatest asset. That part right there.
And what values make our family unique?
Well, we have I think what helps is we have a common richness in our faith, and that kind of, well, it does help. That makes us connect to each other and support each other in our struggles. We know where to reach, where to call upon, how to use our church, how to use our faith, how to bring ourselves back to that, to that richness, what makes us succeed. And we don't try to fall into, any false traps. And if we do, we know how to pull ourselves out and where to go. And each one of us is human with frailties. We do succeed. Knowing that, you know where to reach out, and you know what it takes to get you there.
The last question I'll be asking is, you mentioned succeed a lot. What can you define success? Because many people have different definitions of success, whether it's money, accomplishments, things like that. You said succeed. What do you mean by that?
Well, some people think success is based on, as you say, on material goods. That's the least amount of thought that I think of in success. It's having that when within yourself, you are very solid and you're very caring. That success is translated, and no one can take that away from you. That's translated to other people, and you see this, and you recognize this in each other, and you try to instill that, what you have and what you learned, you try to bring that to the table with your children, and let them learn that richness, that value. And that's important. That's what I see as a success. It's not a material success. That's very shallow. It's the success that you have within each person. That's already part of your makeup. And these are the gifts that you have. And if you bring them out and you spend time finding out what God gave you as a gift, you're not going to be happy until you find that gift and mature it and develop it. And that's the peak of success. Because each one of you is different. Each one has a different gift. So you work on that. And it takes work. You have to pray. You've got to be humble. You've got to do the important things that make you research your interior life. And that's what the richness of success is.
Thank you very much. It's been very enjoyable.
Good to have you, JoAnne.
Signing off for now. Bye.
So my name's Mark Davis. I'm the last of Paul and Shirley Davis's 8 kids. And I'm going to pick up on some questions here. So, Dad, speak to us about your ancestry and what you know about them and what they stand for.
Well, I'd like to recall when I was in grade school, my brother John and I, one of our chores was to go daily to Grandma's house, and she lived at the Frontenac, the back side of the Frontenac Hotel. And that is also one of the back entrance to the hotel. She had a little apartment there. I remember Johnny and I were at the latter years, so we don't remember where Grandma stayed at before that. So one of our jobs was to go down to the Chinese restaurant, and we had a little a little basket. And these are the same baskets in those days, made out of wood, with a wood base and stapled with an arm over the top. Excuse me. That's the same cart or basket that you would buy your peaches, your plums, the blueberries. That's
like a crate.
Like, yeah. Now they have plastic today. They put that all in. That was made out of wood then. So that's what we would go down with that, take it back to the Chinese restaurant, and the name of I remember his name was Happy. Now I don't think that was his proper name, but that's what he was nicknamed. So we would go there, and he would put the food in this basket, and we'd bring it back to Grandma. And there was a cloth that went over it, and I don't remember. We'd get a piece of paper. We never paid for it, so I knew through my uncles and my fathers, they made arrangements how to handle this. I remember that, and if we bring it back to Grandma, and if we were good, she always had Pepsi. She'd open a Pepsi, and then we had to be good. And she would let us have just one bottle of Pepsi that we would share between us. She about that time, I think she was in her late 80s, very late 80s or early, would be her late 80s, and she had a cane. She was a strong-willed woman, and that was. She had to be that way to survive and succeed in raising 3 sons and being alone in this country. So then we would another chore we would clean. We'd have to help clean the place, and she supervised us. And if we didn't listen or didn't behave, she would turn a cane around with the hook on the end of it and grab us by the leg. She was a very strong woman. So as little kids, we learned a form of discipline.
And the distance to stay away.
Yeah, you don't win kids over that way. But this is the way she was. That was her. And we noticed she would walk to church, because the church was right across the street, and go to, I don't remember these scenes, but they were told to me that if the altar servers didn't behave or anything, she would go up and tell them with her cane. So she had, and then from her window, we would open the door, and I remember she had a grandma type chair, those with high back top and wooden chair with cushion on it, and she would sit there and she'd be praying the rosary. She had I forget the name, the rosary that is 3 decades, 3 rosaries on it. She would be praying that continually, and she would spend time, we would pray too with her. She was very, very religious, and this was her way of, at peace with the Lord. She would pray continually. From her window and door, she could see people going in and out of the hotel. And in that hotel there was a bar, a beverage room, they call it. One for women and one for men. So I remember one of the women had her children in a carriage, and she went to the beverage room to get a quick drink, and the baby started to cry, or one child started to cry, I can't remember, 1 or 2. Grandma got up with her cane, went in the beverage room and grabbed that lady and brought her outside. My uncle wasn't very happy. That isn't good for business.
No.
So this is, I'm trying to give you the type of personality and how this was her skills of raising, her children and grandkids, and she brought with her, all the traditions and customs, the way she grew up, and tried to, melt that into the way of life of Sudbury, where we lived, in Ontario.
And her name was
Mulaney. Right.
And how did you address her as?
Grandma.
Just grandma.
Sito, probably Sito.
More.
That
Sito.
would be, yeah, right.
Okay. And then that was your father's?
My father's mother. And later on we'll get into the history of my father's father died in Chicago. And we understand through food poisoning or something like that.
Your grandfather died.
Yeah,
in
my
Chicago.
grandfather, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we'll get into that at a later discussion. But I'm trying to see, and then we had a uncle that had a confectionery store, and this was during the war now. Business is kind of slow in those areas. We would go down there, and he'd give us, treated us very well. He and his children were older children. They were very kind to me. And then my Aunt Rose and Uncle Charlie, and there was a close knit of relatives around us that watched over us, and we watched their way of life. It was these were very hard times, so you've got to put that into the mix. That that there's strength in that character when you're suffering, and we saw this, we recognized it. They were hard, and the weather, the element of the weather, presents another condition. The lack of all, a lot of things you couldn't have, they weren't available. So you see this struggle, you see this way of life, that helps form you. Sure, you're kids, but they're ingrained in you. You're getting a good visual of what life was and how it was. So that's we had relatives that had Eli and his wife lived across the street from Uncle Sam's and Aunt Maggie's place, and I remember she had to go to the hospital, and my father had me stay with them to help them at the store, and I spent the night there. All I remember is that it was a cold day, and that's the way it was. It was cold, and I kept my socks on and gloves on and slept, kept my sweater on top of my PJs just to stay warm under the heavy blankets and all of that. But that's the way it was. You survive, It comes out. They lived upstairs. Downstairs they had a mini Circle K of today's style, a very small convenience store.
Yeah.
They had these in all these little neighborhoods. So that's the way it was. And
you touched on this next question a little bit about what does family mean to you. You kind of talked about that struggle a little bit and how they've been supportive.
And now this in relationship to the relatives or in relationship to within our own family?
This in relationship to what, how you view family to yourself.
Yeah.
If you were to give it a definition maybe or what it means to you.
Well, we, during hard times, you tend to, close ranks. You depend a lot on each other, and you help out each other. Your importance to your struggle. There's not a lot you can do. You think the power you have is no power at all, so you rely quite a bit on on prayer to help make things better, to pray so we can succeed and get the times will change. So you learn to recognize that this is the way it is. And to get better, we have to work with each other. and pray and make sure that, work as a team.
So, let me ask you, what is there anything you'd like to still accomplish in your life? Any goals or any?
Well, I feel I personally feel I have accomplished quite a bit. You can always dream things up or things that you want to do. That I feel very satisfied. I think where I'm at today, I'm very happy. I'm very content with all of our children. I'm just extremely happy to see the offsprings and the beauty that what two people in love, what comes forth, the sacrifice, the work that Mom has done. You see the results of it, and there is sacrifice, there is work. I would never want to pretend to tell you that life is easy, but it was beautiful. We enjoyed each one of you. We felt it was a blessing to have children, to be fortunate to have children. So, and we enjoy that. We're very happy.
Another question is, what has given you the most meaning in your life?
Well, that's
tough to zero in.
Tough to zero that one in. Well, as you're hearing these different interviews, you could pull out of it a lot.
You can pull out of a lot, and you can also pull out themes too.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas. That's let's see that's a tough one.
I'm not changing it.
Which one? What number was that? Oh yeah. No, I've always felt my father was one of my best friends. Our personalities were very, very complementary to each other. He had a very sharp mind. He was limited to the school he went to, but he had a very good memory. I'd watch him outwit these real estate brokers that were. He would just show them where their weaknesses on their proposals. It was empty. You're missing. You cannot proceed with these values to make this work, these amounts to make this thing succeed. And I remember a couple of them kept coming back to my father with these different proposals because they wanted to find out his analytical ability to go through this paperwork and find these flaws. So, and again, through that same, that's how we bought some of the properties. Yeah, I found I got a lot of strength out of my father. I was very happy to be close to him. He allowed me to. Is that the end? All right.
Keep going.
He allowed me to be, to grow, to mature. And again, I'm watching my mother sacrifice and raising the kids and feeding us and clothing us. You see these things. And my uncles, I would watch them, how they would react within their family, within each other. Yes, they had struggles, they had differences, but amidst all of that, after the dust settled, they were very close. They
Well, let me ask, probably this is my last question, and it might go over just a teeny bit, but our family, our last name is not Davis, is it?
No, that is an adopted name. Yesterday I was listening to an interview that my cousin Kay, this was during right after my father's funeral. My Uncle Charlie came down for the funeral, and they're interviewing him. The name Davis, he just that name struck in his mind as he was learning the English language, and he just came up with that name, Davis. It doesn't, there's no reason or anything. And he found out that that's an easy name for people to remember, and he used that name, and they don't have the formality today of, he just started with the name and he signed off on it, and that's and his
didn't
brothers.
have to go to the courthouse.
No courthouse or no nothing. No.
Just the pattern started.
That's how the name Davis came about. It is not related at all to our original name, or and no rhyme or reason to that.
So your Uncle Charlie picked it.
Yes, and that's how it came about.
Wow.
And at some point I'll tell you the story how he immigrated and how he came over with Grandma, his mother, and they worked hard to establish. They were peddlers, and that's the way you did it. Mm-hmm. You go to the wholesale house, you load up with your suitcase, with goods, and you go out to the farms, to the mining camps, to the lumber camps, and you sell, and you make a profit. You come back and you do it again, and you make enough profit to buy a little store. And one of the brothers would stay in the store, the other two would go out peddling. So there's a lot of history there that I will tell at a later episode.
Could you give us a sneak peek into our real last name?
Yes, I can.
Maybe
it is very. My father in 1946, when he was working on his immigration papers, wrote to the village where he was born and raised in Arbat Ishaya in Lebanon. And he says here that he addresses the letter Najib Sarkis Tanus Bashara. And I'm assuming that that is part of the family names, somewhere within there, all right? And he signs off as Butros Samhan. Then I have a family tree that shows the names. And then while I was in Sudbury one year, I asked one of the mensurs what the family name was, and he says it's Antun, and the proper name is Bushara Antun. Now remember, the tradition of the old country is they give you names that relate. The first son, you're the son of someone. So you could already establish where this family is from and how they're tied together, all right? So part of these names fit into this category. And then my father wrote down once, Butros Azia Sam'an Tanus. So I hope by the end of all of these interviews, we will be able to nail this down to one name. But as I get these different names from my father, from the mensur, and again from my father making an application, and I look at the family tree, yes, I see these names in that family tree. Mm-hmm. So it's a little...
It's not as clear.
Not as clear as we do it over here.
Yeah.
But to the people from the Middle East, or in a lot of countries do the same thing. Mm-hmm. They have names that relate back to the families, mm-hmm. so you know where your roots are. Mm-hmm. So I hope it's not quite as clear as I can present it to you, but somewhere down the line we will have these on a DVD to show how these names are put together. I need more help on it to find it out. I have to go back to my brothers and sisters that would hopefully help me on this.
All right. Well, thank you for opening up and answering all these questions.
Well, thank you for being here.
I'm Marianne Collins. I'm the oldest. I used to brag about it, and now I just say it quietly. The oldest of 8. And I'm going to ask Dad a few questions. My first one is about your childhood. How did you view yourself as a child? And sometimes you view yourself by comments from others. So do you remember any comments maybe from your grade school teachers when your parents would go to conferences, if they had those? Or things that people, your elders would say to your parents about you?
Mm-hmm. Well, being the youngest and a twin, there was some attention that was given to that, and I recognize that, and I could, if you be proud of it, so to speak. But that was, I don't recall anything outside of those areas right there. We went to a bilingual school, and there was a big struggle there. I had to pick up the French, and besides learning proper English.
So that's where you learned how to speak French, in school?
That's right.
Okay, and were you actually the youngest, or is Aunt Pauline the youngest?
No, I am the youngest.
You are, so
Aunt
she was a
Pauline
couple
by
minutes.
5 minutes. I don't know. They say 5 minutes, whatever. So
A couple pushes.
a couple more pushes. Yes.
Older.
And then we were very close. We were all 8th grades. We were in class together. Now you said about conferences, and I don't remember having any conferences at all in grade school.
And that's something you would have remembered because, the
Yeah.
anticipation of
Right.
your parents coming home to find out what was said by the teachers.
I remember at the end of the year getting the report cards, but no, there's disciplinary action, but that was the only thing that would bring the attention to the parents that I remember.
Okay. Were you shy? Did people say, "Oh, Paul is so quiet"?
The youngest of 7, by the time it was time for me to say anything in the household, it was time to go to bed.
Your time was up.
My time was up. I remember, there I had to go to bed first, while the others were, my older brothers and sisters were still up. But I do remember that, and we had, and I remember radio just coming on in those days. There was just the village finally got a radio station, and there was a program that would come on. I don't know if it was 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, but the minute that hit the radio station, that was time for me to go to bed.
Oh, so you weren't allowed to listen to the radio?
Before that time, we would.
Oh, okay.
But when that program came on, it was time to go to bed.
Oh, okay.
There was something
So it's more for adults, maybe.
Yeah, well, not so much for adults, but that was time for me to go to bed.
Okay, that's how you knew.
Yeah.
And tell me about the bowl of cereal you used to have. I know I tell my kids whenever they're hungry at night, well, Jiddo used to have a bowl of cereal before bed every night. Is that true?
Yeah, we would get a snack every night, yeah. Mother was just very good about making sure that we were all well fed. That was very, and she did. And remember, you had one big stove in the kitchen, and there's a wood stove, and that would stay on. In the winter months, that was on all the time, and the summer months, you get it ready to cook.
Was it like those pot-belly stoves?
Well, it's a little bigger than that.
Oh, okay.
It's bigger than that, yeah. It would have four places to put big pots, and then one area to put in the wood. Then we'd have to take all the coal, the ashes, have to put them in buckets.
Oh, I did
And
hear
take
that
that
part.
and take that outside. Get rid
Now,
of it.
tell me about your siblings. You're the youngest of 7.
Yes.
And in order, starting with Aunt Helen, there's
Aunt Helen.
Helen.
And then Aunt Helen, Genevieve, and then Joe, Nora, Johnny, Paul and Pauline. Did I miss anybody?
Okay.
Let's see, Helen, Genevieve, Joe, Nora, Johnny, Paul and Pauline. There's your
it?
7.
Okay. Now, who did you get along with the best?
Well, the younger, remember the younger ones you get along with.
That's true.
The older ones, there's a spread there, and they would, you weren't at their level yet.
They were out
Their
having
mature
parties
level.
while you were
Yeah, and
home
they,
playing
and
with toys.
that's normal, They there's that spread, and we would probably be irritating them as kids. But they helped us. I remember them helping me very much with homework, and the story goes that the Aunt Helen and Aunt Genevieve took care of us when we were small. I mean,
Changing
helped
diapers
mother very much. And then, in those days, diapers aren't like they are today.
Yeah.
It was all cloth and that little needle that would
The pin. The safety pin.
The safety pin.
I think that's what I wore too.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Now tell me about each of your siblings and one thing that stands out in your mind from your younger days. So Aunt Helen, when you think back to your childhood, what's the one thing that kind of stands out about her?
Well, Aunt Helen was a very beautiful girl. She was prim and proper, and we noticed that as kids. That kind of sets us an example. And then she had a lot of friends, and they would come over. Mother always had these people over at the house
For dinner?
I remember once a week. I remember Aunt Kay would always come over. She was a very good friend of Aunt Genevieve, and there was two other, I can't remember their name now.
They were the same age then?
Aunt Kay and Aunt Genevieve.
Oh,
they were
okay.
close friends. Mm-hmm. And Joe was with Sadie and Teresa. And I was a close friend with my sister Pauline, with Bernadette and Joni.
And they were all in Sudbury with you?
All in Sudbury, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
And then my
that.
cousin
Okay.
Barbara. So that was the kind of the little cliques.
The friends.
Then Aunt Helen and bring friends over, and mother and father would always, be very receptive.
Now, what about Aunt Genevieve? What's something that you remember about her growing
I
up?
remember before she could go out on Saturday evening with her friends, we had wooden floors, and they would get this wool cloth, and they would put this wax on the floor. It's like a paste.
Yeah.
And they would put it all on the floor after they washed it and dusted it, all right?
And this is the floor in your
That's
home?
the floor in our dining room.
Oh, okay.
All right? And they would have me and Aunt Pauline run and skid, on the floor so we
how
could help
fun.
shine it.
On your bottoms, I take it then. You're just sliding
I
across.
remember my feet, but that was a big job because
You had to wax the floors.
they had to wax floors, yeah. And it took that's a lot of work to wax and then try to get a gloss to it.
And weekly they would do this.
Well, I don't remember if it's every week, but I do remember on Saturday night before the chores that she would have, she couldn't go out. And I remember them struggling to get this all done, and so they could go out and there was St. Anne's Church had a club, and a lot of my brothers and sisters older would go there. Mm-hmm. They would have a ping pong, table tennis, badminton. I don't know if they had bowling or not, but those were the things indoor, very much indoor.
A
events.
great way to bring the
Right.
teenagers together.
That's right, and they had movie theaters in town.
So during the summer it was nice to do outdoor things, but during
Yes.
the winter most things
But-
were indoor.
Yeah, but again, in the summer, if you have a good summer, the summers could be cold too and rainy.
Oh.
So but the fact is that there wasn't snow on the ground, and
Mm-hmm.
that was good. And then again, in the winter months, ice skating was very popular.
Okay,
The
so
rinks,
they were
they would go outdoor.
Did you wear shorts during the summer, or was that
Yeah,
not
we
a-
did.
You
Yeah.
did? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Now, what about Uncle Joe, being your oldest brother?
Yes.
What do you remember about him
I
growing
remember
up?
being an avid reader, and at that time there was the red Russians and the white Russians, and he was reading a story, and he would tell us, and we all got enthused about this. He would tell us what was going on and the wars that they had in Russia.
These were factual
These
stories?
were factual stories, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were true stories, yeah.
Wow.
Of the czars, how they eliminated all the czars, and
So he would read those
He would read
stories and relay it back to
He'd
you?
read the books and then tell us the stories. I remember that very, very clear then.
Yeah.
That was
Now, we're at Aunt Nora, is that right?
Aunt Nora,
Helen, Genevieve, Joe, Nora?
Aunt Nora, yes.
Okay.
She, Nora was a light complected and beautiful. She had beautiful hair.
Oh.
And I remember one incident that, on the trees they had these little burrs. I'm trying to compare them to something that is out here. They would be about the size of a dime. And they had little prickers sticking out of them. So if you threw that in somebody's hair, that would be a chore to get.
Ooh.
So I thought that was fun. So I threw it at Aunt Nora's.
Dad, you didn't.
At Aunt Nora's hair.
How many?
And my mother had me sit down right next to her while she took out each burr. So
She didn't make you take them out.
No.
You had to watch.
I had to watch.
Okay.
That was very painful because I saw that struggle of Mother taking each one out and the pain that Aunt Nora was going through.
So that was your punishment.
Aunt Nora was very kind, very, very helpful to us, And then Uncle Johnny would help both Pauline and myself in our school, in our schoolwork. We had one project. We had to write the lives of saints, and we had to cut them out from pictures and write stories. And Uncle Johnny helped compose that for me and put it in order in this binder. I don't know where it's at anymore. I was trying to find it. I haven't run across it yet.
How old were you? Was this
I was in a
younger,
grade school, maybe,
elementary?
5th, 6th grade.
But you
See, all my
remember-
experience really is grade school, because in high school we came to the United States.
Okay, I see. But now, so there were pictures in this binder of
we had-
saints, but you
No,
didn't
I
have...
had to cut them out from different articles or anything that we could get our hands on, and then paste them in there.
Did you have photocopiers where you could take it to a print shop?
No photocopiers. There was nothing like that.
So you either had to draw pictures for
That's right.
assignments or
That's
cut them out of
correct. Cut them
articles,
out of
like you
articles,
said.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. And so that was Uncle Johnny who you remember specifically helping you with that assignment.
We didn't have ballpoint pens in those days either.
Don't tell me you used feather pens.
Well, that's...
With inkwells?
Well, we had a little with inkwells, and you had the little
Really?
plunger in there. You would fill it with ink, and you would write.
So you'd fill the pen with ink?
With ink, it had a plunger made out of rubber, and you would squeeze it. There's a little prong that would squeeze it.
The top or the bottom?
No, it was right in the middle. It would squeeze out the air, and as you release the plunger, it would suck in the ink. And then you'd have this little tube of ink in there, and you would write.
Sounds messy.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Filling the pen.
that's what we had.
But what was it messy? Was there ink all over?
No, you had to be careful.
So
Yeah,
you put the plunger into the well, and
Yes.
that's how it fills.
And if you didn't have that kind of plunger or that part, you had a little bottle that was on your desk. There was a little hole that had ink in it.
Oh, I've seen desks like that. And
Then you
would
just put your pen in there with the tip and then write.
So what? How many letters could you get before
Well, I
you
can't remember
redid?
how many, and it was ribbed. The back of the part of the pen before the metal part is there. There was ribs, and that would hold the ink.
Oh, I see what
Would
you're
hold the
saying.
ink.
Okay.
You could go quite a few lines.
And what about pencils?
Yeah, we had pencils too, but we had to learn to write in ink.
Oh, okay. So the younger kids probably
That's
used the
right.
pencils.
Right.
Okay.
Now this is not in the, this is probably, I can't remember what grade, but probably in the 5th or 6th grade or 6th to 8th, maybe we started using ink.
Would you say America had more luxuries as far as modern equipment compared to Canada at that time?
I think so, because You see, now Canada was in war a couple of years before the United States, so it didn't have all of these, and we didn't have them.
So the resources went to fighting the war as opposed to technology.
Absolutely, yes.
So I think we're up to your twin, Aunt Pauline. Did we get everyone?
Yeah, then Pauline and I were buddies. She looked after me and I looked after her.
Womb buddies, is that what you called it in the first one?
Yeah.
I like that.
We we had uniforms.
And you were in the same classrooms
All in the
together.
same classroom, same teachers.
Did you sit together?
No, I don't. No, I don't remember. I know for pictures I saw us together, but I don't remember us sitting together. I think the girls were on one side and the boys were the desks. That's quickly what I do remember. Teachers were always, they were good to us. We were a little, because we were both twins, I think the teachers kind of looked up to us a little bit.
Oh, okay. So you weren't mischievous at all? Or?
Well, I'm sure I was a boy like any other boy. I'm sure as my example of what I did to poor Aunt Nora, we had work to do, we had things to do, we did it. Uncle John and I built an ice rink in the backyard once, or we built an igloo house, and as we're, because the snow is all compacted, you could build an igloo house very easy. You just shovel the snow out.
So you didn't build blocks?
No.
Like you see in the pictures?
These are mounds of snow.
Oh.
All right? So you just make like a tunnel or door-like, and you empty out all the snow.
So here's the mound, and you just hollow it out.
That's the right word. Hollow it out.
And then you'd go in.
And you go in and you make a little private house-like,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I remember one time while we were getting it ready, Uncle Johnny was inside cleaning it out, and the thing collapsed.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, I've worked as hard as I can to get the snow off of his body.
He couldn't have gotten through the snow?
No, because it's too heavy.
Oh, that was scary.
It's too heavy, yeah.
Wow, that was a close call.
Yeah.
What about, I remember a story about your lips or ears, your ears turning blue. I don't know if you already told that story about...
Yeah, when you're outside, I was watching, I remember one incident, watching they would roll the snow to the middle of the road, all right? And they would have this conveyor machine that would go right in, and it would roll the snow onto a conveyor into the trucks to get rid of it.
Oh.
You had to move the snow away.
Okay.
To get rid of it, that's how they would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so fascinated watching them standing out there that I felt my ears, couldn't feel them.
You didn't have that tingling, burning cold. You probably always.
What you do get that after you get into the house.
Oh, okay.
So I remember Mother putting ice on it, and
so you put ice on frostbite or burn.
Yeah.
And that
for
cures
some
it.
reason they do that.
So she took one look at them and knew.
She knew right away. Yeah.
You're lucky.
And as
she
kids,
saved
we hear stories about these people that if it freezes real, it'll just break right off. So I didn't want that to happen. So
it's a completely different element of growing up that I never, I can't relate to. Now let's talk about your mom. What are some of the traits that specifically stand out when you think of your mom, Nabiha?
I'll tell you, the work that she would do to raise a family. And I remember I would get up at night for whatever reason, and my mother was just washing the clothes, and it's not like the wash machines you have today.
Were they the boards that you...
Well, no, she did that too, but then we had also an agitator type machine, and then it had a wringer on top that was a spring tensioned, and that's where you would put the clothes to dry them.
Manually?
Well, later on, they used to be manual with a crank.
Yeah.
Later on, there was a little bar on top of it. You turn it, and then the rollers would start rolling.
Oh.
And that's how John.
So it wasn't electric, but it would just feed.
It was based electric, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was, yeah. It was based off the motor running down on the bottom. This was electric, this one right here, that particular machine. And that's how it is. At the other end, they would go into mother would put them in a bucket and then go hang them outside to dry.
And this was daily? She would...
Well, she washed quite often, I'll tell you.
So that's your most
I remember
vivid
at night, yeah. And my dad would be working late at night, doing watch repairs. And then he'd come home late, and I would be getting up early in the morning, and I'd see Dad still asleep. So we'd be quiet, have our breakfast, and go to school.
And how many bedrooms did this house have?
Later on, after they put in the addition, we generated 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you still had to tiptoe around a little bit when he was sleeping?
Yeah, because Dad was sleeping.
And where would the washer and dryer be?
I don't know.
In the kitchen, maybe? Or I'm assuming you didn't have a separate laundry room?
No, there was no separate laundry room. There was a big bathroom. And I don't know what room that was in. But I remember it was somewhere in the kitchen.
Oh, okay, close, maybe right out
somewhere in the kitchen, area.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Kitchen was big. Yeah.
And so those are your memories of your mom,
right?
As you were growing up, working,
getting up, and before we'd go to school, remember, she had to put in the winter months. You had to put the shoes, heavy clothes,
I can't imagine.
all that heavy clothes, and then the galoshes, and then the parka, and the hood, and the earmuffs, and the hat.
So she would line all those up for you.
Everything was ready, and she would, for each one of us, she would do that.
What about baking bread? Did she do that by hand, or would you buy a loaf of bread?
No, she would make some bread, sometimes.
Out of bread.
Yeah, she made bread, or made muffins, and we always had treats, I'll tell you, Mary. She always made something.
She enjoyed cooking.
Oh yeah,
I remember her cooking.
Yeah, she always did a lot of. She enjoyed it, and boy, especially when we come home, she'd always have a snack for us, and the warm house. The wood cooking is different.
Sounds like a cozy home.
Yeah.
Do you know, Siti taught me to sew.
Oh,
Do you remember her sewing?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Crocheting?
Yes, she
loved
loved crocheting.
I remember she did a lot of that.
Yeah, made bedspreads, and she crocheted bedspreads, and did a lot of that, yes.
Now, was there anything you ever disagreed with her on?
I don't remember anything.
Nothing?
Specific, yeah.
Really?
No,
So it was smooth sailing?
Yeah.
Well, there goes that question. Okay. Then how about just a few things you admired about your dad? I know you talked about his real estate knowledge and transactions. Anything from when you were younger?
When you see, your parents working real hard and that struggle, somehow it leaves you. You have compassion. You have. There's something there that you want to. Want to help. You want to do something. You can't. So.
And the struggle you saw was financial or hardship?
Just it was difficult times.
Through the Depression.
Through the Depression. See, I was born right during the Depression, and right after that, the war came. So there was a continual struggle.
But the war helped the economy a little bit with the more jobs for production of...
Not really, Marianne.
No.
Sure, you may have jobs, but you didn't have goods.
That's true. Yeah.
You follow?
The baloney years.
Yeah, the baloney years.
That's what we call it. So you wanted to help, and how did you do that?
Well, I try to do all the chores and try to learn how to run that furnace downstairs. Anything you could do, wood, you would do, stacking the wood. You stack the wood in the summer months for the winter. They'll go right along that wall, that whole wall all filled with wood. So, and you got to shake the snow out of it and the icicles and all
you
that.
would chop.
You have to bring that in. No, we had a gentleman that would, I forgot his name, Slim.
You're kidding.
Slim.
Like the palm tree cutter.
Yeah, like that same, yeah.
Slim, okay.
He was tall and I remember I was, this is when we were stacking the wood. And these guys would go around to each house to see about cutting wood, because everybody needed wood.
So he would bring the cut wood to
No,
you?
we'd have the wood already dumped from the trucks.
Okay.
But they had to be cut.
Oh,
You
okay.
see?
Like quarters?
Quarters, yeah.
Okay.
Or halves. Mm-hmm. And he was good with the axe, and he had a sharp axe.
Wow.
And you put that right in the ground there, right, and put another wood next to it to balance it, and he would, split that in one stroke.
That's what he did for a living.
Well, that's what we know of,
Yeah, yeah.
And that's and he'd come around every spring, fall, just to get the wood ready for winter.
Now, did you ever try splitting the wood?
Oh, I did, but I didn't have the physical strength that.
Yeah. So you would help with gathering the wood and
and all
lining
that.
it up.
And I remember once that I must have been aggravating him or did something wrong. And my mother saw him raise the axe, and I remember her voice yelling at him, "Put that axe down." I don't know if he was going to hit me with the axe or he was trying to
And I know
and
we
she
need
had
to
a-
wrap up soon, but
but that I remember that once.
she had a what?
So I guess I was a boy that was kind of mischievous too,
Well,
like
I
any
was
other
going to
boy.
say, I remember another story about
Yeah.
Sito with a knife. Siti coming after someone with a knife who was aggravating you.
Yeah, well, that was when we were in
That was-
Phoenix.
yeah, another-
But remember that story. I'll have to tell it. It was cute. How this guy was parking in our driveway at the motel on Van Buren, and well, how do people get in and out? And he was going to the bar across the street. So I volunteered to put the neutral and push the car. He thought I was going to steal it. So right away he come running after me, and I outran him. Then I said, I'm going to go in the house. And my mother was cooking in the kitchen, cutting something. And this guy, I just run right in, and she saw something was wrong. She picked up that knife and says, what do you want?
You go, Siti.
Yeah, so he backed away.
I bet he
They
did.
took his car and left.
Wow.
I don't think he'll ever park at that spot again.
Yeah, I bet you never saw him
Yeah,
after
no,
that.
I didn't.
Wow. Well, Christina's telling us we have about 2 minutes left, and I'll just end with one more question. Did you, and I know this might be awkward, but did you have any struggles with your father, ever have a disagreement? I mean, working with him, I'd imagine maybe you saw things a different way. Being younger, did you maybe want to change the business, modernize it at all, change things from the way he did them?
No, I had as I said before, I had a very good relationship with my father. And I never had that struggle. I
So
don't
you
recall.
agreed with the way he did
we
things?
would sit down and talk, and we'd use numbers to prove this is going to work, and a lot of that stuff my father would he could put it in his head. I had to do it in writing.
Oh, really?
He could come to that conclusion way ahead of me.
So he's good at math.
Yeah, well, yes, and they were trained in the old country, memorize. That's one of their greatest skills. All right, they would train their memory and exercise it, and and use their cognitive to come to quick decisions with this memory, with that ability, and he had that. The same thing with my uncles.
And you respected that.
Oh, very much, yeah. So in this, in our relationship, it was very good. I don't remember, getting disciplined or punished or, I'm sure as a kid there are things that happen. Well, I think our time is up.
Oh, yes. Back to you, Christina. Okay.